just cannot catch a break. You know, we heard earlier today that Jason Garrett had tested positive for COVID. So he is out this week for calling the plays. And that will, fittingly enough, I guess, be up to Freddie Kitchens, who gets to do it against his old team, the Cleveland Browns. Then we find out James Bradbury is out this week because he's on the close contact list for the Giants. Does anybody else feel like in the span of about 5 or 6 days that the Giants season is completely falling apart? Because it certainly feels that way now. Like all of a sudden, these things are happening and you cannot seem to find your way back from them. Like, I don't know how you would look at a game like this week when you're playing the Browns. Mayfield's playing very good football right now. Your defense has frankly been the only reason that you've been in it this year. The only reason that you've been able to piece it together and be a factor and actually give people some excitement for a bad football team in a bad NFC Eastern division. And now you lose somebody who has arguably been your best defensive player all year. So you've got no James Bradbury this week, and you're going up against the Browns. We already have talked at length about the fact that Daniel Jones is likely not going to play, even more likely now not to play, because they now had to cancel practice today out of caution because of the COVID situation with Garrett and with Bradbury having close contact. So if that's the case, if you can't get him on the practice field on Thursday, he is most certainly not playing this week. And I don't necessarily even think that's a bad thing, because him being out there now with 2 injuries, Colt McCoy gives the Giants a better chance to win than a 50% Daniel Jones. He absolutely does. And it's ridiculous to suggest otherwise. Now, look, that doesn't mean Colt McCoy is any big-time player or somebody who's going to step in and ultimately be better than Daniel Jones. But when you look at Jones right now, and what we saw last week, as stationary as he was, the inability to just move around the pocket, let alone run RPOs or anything of that sort, how do you possibly think that he would give you a better chance than McCoy? But now all the chances seem to be falling apart a little bit, frankly. Do you feel like that the Giants can go out and beat the Cleveland Browns this week? I know that we did not think that they had a chance in hell of beating the Seahawks in Seattle a couple of weeks ago, but doesn't this feel like it's almost even tougher in that moment? With no James Bradbury? I mean, this is a bad situation. This is getting away from the Giants. And I can't imagine this really getting away from them as quickly as it has when you consider that 10 days ago, heck, a week ago, they seemed to be a shoo-in to win the division. But now everything just seems to be going wrong. Look, I don't think Jason Garrett's had a terribly good year, but I don't necessarily feel real good about Freddie Kitchens stepping in and getting the job done. Oof. The hole is getting deeper and deeper. Starting to feel like that hole in The Dark Knight Rises. And let me tell you something. The Giants ain't Christian Bale right now climbing up that wall. 800-919-3776. Back to the phones. Open lines now. Good chance to get through on the Jets and why Lincoln Riley is the perfect coach for the New York Jets. Kevin in Highland Park is next on 98.7 ESPN. Kevin, what's going on?
Hi, how you doing, man? I hope everything's well.
Everything's good. How about you?
Before I get to my Jets point, Very good, very good. Hope before I get to my Jets point, I'm a New York City bus operator for 21 years at Queens Village Depot, and I want to give a shout out to all the men and women of the NTA that work hard in the last 24 hours. We move New York, and I just want to give them a big shout out, send them some love because it's not an easy job, but we do it every day with
It's
pride.
not an easy job in normal circumstances, and I can't imagine what the last year has been like, let alone just the last 24 hours.
Thank you very much. But my Jets point, sir. I hear what you're saying about Lincoln Riley, but for me, my money is the enemy. I like to see that offense or something come over to the Jets or Brady, get him from under Matt Rule. But I'm going to throw another guy at you. Say Lincoln Riley, the college guy. How about Urban Meyer? What would you think about him coming over to the Jets?
You know, I don't really like the idea. I really don't like the idea of Urban Meyer being the Jets head coach for a bunch of different reasons. Number one being that he hasn't been in the league. Number two, he's a few years out from coaching. And normally, I wouldn't make that big of a deal about it. I mean, I'm giving the benefit of the doubt to Bill Cowher, but he's been all about the NFL for the majority of his coaching career, for all of his coaching career for that matter. I think it's more likely you're going to see Urban Meyer wait another year or two and end up at some place like Texas or something like that. If I were the Jets, I wouldn't hire Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer's going to come here. He's going to want to run the show completely. And I just don't know how exactly he would work in the NFL. I really don't. In fact, I'd be pretty skeptical about it. I think Urban Meyer is the guy that wants to control absolutely everything inside his program. And in the NFL, that's exceptionally hard to do. If I were the Jets, that's not somebody that I think would fit really well in New York, that I think would fit really well in the NFL. I just look at it all and it doesn't make enough sense for me. He is a great, great college coach, but I just don't see it. I would not hire Urban Meyer if I were the Jets. And you need somebody who is going to connect with today's player. That's what you need. And I understand the mentality of wanting to have somebody who has a lot of equity in the league. I get that too. But when it comes to Urban Meyer, he doesn't check either of those boxes. I don't know that he's going to connect in a great way with NFL players. Doesn't feel right to me. 800-919-3776. 800-919-ESPN. We will continue with the calls. And Steve makes a great point over on the live stream comment section. And it is simply this. Urban Meyer would leave like Saban did. That would be a really, really good idea or good point. Because I don't know that Urban Meyer could come in and handle it terribly well. You know, at least Saban had more NFL experience, but he was just more comfortable in college. You know, Saban was defensive coordinator, as we know, for Belichick in Cleveland when he took the Michigan State job. So he had an NFL background to him. I don't think with Urban Meyer at this point, the NFL's the way to go. And then Steve makes another point that Jeff Monken from West Point would be the sneaky good fit. Not for the NFL, no. They're still running the triple option? Yeah, so listen, Jeff Monken's done a great job. If he gets a job somewhere else in college, that's one thing. NFL, no, absolutely not. 800-919-3776. Carlin, 98.7 ESPN, still to come. Oh, yes, yes. Week 15. Locks of incompetence. Locks of incompetence. And also on the horizon, the return of the Carlin Chronicles at 9 o'clock. Tonight's episode, I can't believe she showed up. Carlin, 98.7 ESPN, open lines, let's go. 800-919-3776. Been too long. Been too long since I've heard this. Open lines 800-919-3776, 800-919-ESPN. You know, earlier today, I saw this article that was put out by Bill Barnwell, who's an outstanding writer. And he's talking about the best and worst potential head coaching openings and where do the Eagles, Jets, and Chargers rank. And the idea is that there are up to potentially 9 head coaching vacancies that could pop up this offseason, with the Jets being right in the mix there. And he has the Jets as the 4th best job behind the Falcons, behind the Texans, and behind the Chargers. Look, I understand that the Chargers have found their quarterback in Justin Herbert. We're going to see him tonight on Thursday Night Football. But you can't for a second look at what's gone on. Houston depleted of some of their draft picks, obviously dumb moves that they have made. You know, just getting doing what they did with DeAndre Hopkins. They have Deshaun Watson, who's fantastic. I like him a lot. They don't have their first pick. The Laramie Tunsil situation was a mess. You're going to say that the Falcons are a good job. They don't have much cap space. Arthur Blank may be a good owner and a patient owner, but I don't see where that's a terrific job. And this, to me, is why a lot of people think I might be nuts, but the Jets have the best head coaching job available. They absolutely do. When you are able to put together all of the attractive aspects of it, you've got a solid first-year draft class from this past year, right? I think we can agree everybody feels good about Mekhi Becton. I think we can agree people are feeling good about where Denzel Mims could go. We don't know if he's going to be a superstar, but we have a pretty good feeling that he could be a very good receiver. You know, there are other players here who can help. Bryce Hall may end up being a steal because of an injury. LaMichael Pirine could be a piece. There haven't been parts of this Jets draft class that have been a real letdown in year one. That's number one. Number two is the fact that they did away with Jamal Adams, that they made the trade they absolutely had to make. Jamal Adams was a luxury that the Jets could no longer afford. And it's nice to have a safety who can pass rush and get the 8.5 sacks as he did last week. Good for you. That's fantastic, Jamal. You can't cover. And when you're talking about paying a safety in this day and age, it's not the best idea, because you need players at more impactful positions to be the ones where you're investing the most capital. And safety is not an impactful enough position right now for that to be the case. Couple that with the fact that Jamal is always finding a way to be a distraction, and you understand why they had to move on from it, and you understand that in the grand scheme, they absolutely cleaned up in that trade. Cleaned up. They fleeced the Seahawks in that trade. They got rid of the headache. They got rid of having to pay him. They got 2 first-round picks and a third-round pick and a starter, or at least a guy that could start this year. It's a phenomenal deal for the Jets. So that now puts them in a position this year where they have 5 picks in the first 3 rounds right now. And then you enter Sam Darnold. What are the Jets going to get for Sam Darnold? The Jets will not get less, and this is if things just turn horribly bad in terms of who wants to trade for him. They won't get less than the third-round pick. They may get a second-round pick. They might have to wait for it for next year, but that's fine. Because then next year, you'll have 2 1s and 2 2s. So you're going to get something in return for Sam that is going to help you. Think about all those draft picks. And then think about all the draft picks for the Jets before this past year that have not worked out and who is actually left on the team and how poorly they have drafted during that stretch. That's all about to change. Listen, you have to hit on the players. I'm not going to deny that for a minute. But the Jets have a much better chance of hitting on the players right now than ever before. And then we get to the cap space. With $80-some million in cap space. Are you kidding? Now, granted, there may not be people right away lining up to come and play for the Jets. But in the NFL, other than when you run into that Eli-type situation, if the money's on the table, the players are going to come and play. If it's the best deal that they can get, generally speaking, because the NFL is so predicated on getting the most guaranteed money that you can, it doesn't matter what the uniform is. That's just truth. It honestly is. And then lastly, you have the number 1 overall pick with a quarterback that is going to be rated higher than Andrew Luck was and on that same level and has a chance to be one of the all-time greats if you really listen to what a lot of the experts believe. You know, you don't hear this kind of chatter when it comes to quarterbacks on this level every year. You hear about guys who are franchise quarterbacks, or they believe they are, but if you really look at the history over the last several years, including locally, teams have not hit on guys they thought were franchise quarterbacks. Like, the percentages are much lower than you would think. So when you have what appears to be a can't-miss situation with Lawrence, and you add all of that up, this is going to be a job that people are going to be knocking on the door for, and you have a GM that's very well respected in NFL circles and has done a great job to put you in this position to be successful. We told you guys, he turned the job down a couple of times because you need to get enough time to do it right. That's why he got a 6-year deal, and that's why they're doing it this way. I know it's been painful, but you got to think of it in terms of the ability with all of the assets and possibilities that they have, that this could be turned around within inside a couple of years. And I'm not talking about 4 or 5. I'm talking about like 2 or 3 at the most. You could be legit contenders in the AFC if you do this right. It's a big if, but it's been a long, long time since the Jets were set up like this. And that's why you heard Bill Cowher, you know, kind of leak through Boomer a little bit and leak through Nate Burleson a little bit. Hey, you know, the Jets job would be interesting. And then he had to back off of it because, you know, he hasn't been fired yet. And it's not looked well to start sniffing around a job where, you know, guy hasn't been fired yet, at least publicly. It goes on behind the scenes all the time. But at least publicly, it looks bad. But Bill Cowher, who hasn't coached in 14 years, all of a sudden wants to coach the Jets when he's had all these other opportunities to potentially come back? Why do you think that is? It's because it's a really good situation. Think Eric Bieniemy wants to be the Jets head coach? You're damn right he does. You think Lincoln Riley would come here to be the Jets head coach? I do. The chance to work with Lawrence after this guy has helped really master the skills of Kyler Murray, of Jalen Hurts, of Baker Mayfield. You don't want that guy here? Look at what's gone on with Cliff Kingsbury. You know, I thought it was nuts a few years ago when the Cardinals went down that road, when the Jets were even sniffing around going down that road. Turns out it wasn't a bad idea, because having a young coach who's a brilliant offensive mind, not a brilliant offensive mind like Christopher Johnson thinks, an actual brilliant offensive mind, could go a long way, man. You like to be surrounded with smart people to do jobs, right? That's the best way to be in life. Surrounding yourself with as many smart people as you can. That's when you're successful. Get a head coach who is regarded in those circles like Sean McVay was, like Kingsbury was. That's an attractive situation to a guy like Trevor Lawrence. 800-919-3776, 800-919-ESPN. It's Carlin, 98.7 ESPN. Open lines. Let's get to them when we come back. Fill them up. We got time for you. We also have more of the Giants to discuss. We'll get to some baseball as well, and the James Harden disaster in Houston. Disaster. Load them up. We're on the live stream as well. Video stream up and running over on ESPN New York 98.7's Twitter feed and on the Facebook page as well. You can put your comments in there. We'll respond to them on the air too. Twitter, that's at Chris Carlin, but you knew that already. Let's step aside for a moment at 8:29.
No one does football like FanDuel Sportsbook all season long. FanDuel is bringing exclusive offers for the best games on the like the fact that crude oil contains impurities, or that base oil made from natural gas is 99.5%
Fire me up a
free
couple
of
of calls.
and the fact that Pennzoil is the first synthetic motor oil made from natural gas, not crude oil. It gives you unbeatable engine protection. The proof is in the Pennzoil. Based on Sequence 4A wear test using SAE 5W30. Available at AutoZone and AutoZone.com.
It's time for some straight talk. Look, we all drop our phones. It happens. You fumble it, crack it, splash it. Well, Straight Talk Wireless now offers this new Platinum Unlimited plan that includes phone protection. Just $65 a month for unlimited talk, text, and data, plus 20 gigs of hotspot, 100 gigs of cloud storage, and more.
You got 30 seconds.
Network. Straight Talk Wireless, no contract, no compromise. See Mobile Protect terms and conditions at Assurion.com/Straight Talk. Limitations and exclusions apply.
Get ready to change your listening habits. Rick, Chris, and Dave are moving.
I've moved many times in my life. This might be the biggest move I've ever made.
DCR moved from 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. beginning January 4th on 98.7 ESPN.
Like we always do with this time, I go for mine, I get to shine, and throw your hands up in the sky. Go for mine, I get to shine, and throw your hands up in the sky.
Carlin, 98.7 ESPN, 800-919-3776. Let's do it. Let's chat it up in just a little bit. We have got the locks of incompetence coming your way. Still with a winning record, a disappointing 1-2 last week, but we stand at 17-15 overall. That is what we call winning. James in the Bronx next, 98.7 ESPN. James, what's going on?
Hey, what's going on? Love the show.
Thank you, James. How you doing?
Good. I got you. I want to get your opinion on this. So, if the Jets were to get Trevor Lawrence, and then you also have Tua, and you also have Allen in the Bills in the same division, Bill Belichick would theoretically have the worst quarterback in that division. So, is it possible that he would, on the last game of the season, sit all of the starters to ensure that the Jets win that game and possibly not get that first-round pick?
Oh, I don't think there's any question. I think Bill Belichick is going to do everything that he can in Week 17 to make it an opportunity for the Jets to win that game. I don't think there's any doubt. Now, what all that means is the Jets have to, Week 17, let's call it what it is. If the Jets don't start James Morgan in Week 17, they're not trying hard enough.
That's true.
That's just it. I think the Patriots are going to be starting, if they're out of it, the Patriots are going to be starting Jarrett Stidham. I'll be stunned if they're not.
Right.
And look, Belichick's not dumb. Like, guys, this is something where he knows how good Lawrence is, and he doesn't want to have to deal with him in his division for the next 10 years. I absolutely, we've been talking about that for a while. I absolutely anticipate that happening.
How do we get Gase on board then?
Listen.
If he knows he's out.
Gase has been doing his part already. Okay?
That's true.
Gase has been doing his part already. He has gone out of his way as a bad football coach to really showcase his skills. I mean, he's done a lot of things that have really led to them losing. And let's call it what it is. The Jets haven't fired Gase because they're doing their best to make sure they finish 0-16. There's no question about that. Like, if you changed coaches, do you want anything this year that was going to give this team a spark? Of course not. Of course not. And look, I actually felt for Gase a few weeks ago with the whole, Greg Williams thing, because as much as we want the Jets to lose so that they get that number one pick, you still have to feel for the guys who were out there busting it for you. And to me, Greg Williams simply just quit on the Jets. He knew he's getting fired. Why don't I get a few extra weeks of paid vacation? To me, that's absolutely what it was.
Gotcha. All
So
right. Appreciate it.
no problem, brother. Appreciate you checking in. 800-919-3776. My guy Mo is in Brooklyn. He's next, 98.7 ESPN. Mo.
Good evening, Chris. How are you?
I'm outstanding, Mo. And yourself?
I'm doing great. Happy holidays to you.
You too.
The article you referenced in the last segment about the best available coaching position, I completely agree with you about Houston. Houston's a mess. There's very few teams in the NFL that I'd rather less be than Houston. I would put the Chargers ahead of the Jets. And
because of Herbert, or because they already have their
Herbert,
guy?
Because of Herbert.
Yeah.
Because of Herbert, and they've been in so many close games this year that it looks like a team that's just poorly coached, that with a better coach might win some of the games that they lost this year. So Herbert and the fact that the team is super competitive in these games that they lose this year. The other thing is the Falcons. I don't see why the Falcons would be a better job than the Jets. I've always looked at the Falcons as a team that's going to move on from Matt Ryan this year. Like, I think the Falcons need to blow up the whole thing and start over, and Matt Ryan ends up with the 49ers next year. Like, that's how I've looked at it this year. I don't see why the Falcons are a better job than the Jets. And besides for the fact that the Jets, the one factor they have this year is that Douglas had a good draft this year. Douglas really nailed his picks this year as the way it looks now, and they have a ton of picks coming up the next 2 seasons. So I think if the Jets get launched, the Jets are one of the prime jobs in the NFL this year.
Listen, I agree with that. The one thing I'd ask you about, though, with Atlanta moving on from Matt Ryan, I don't necessarily disagree. But right now, I mean, they have some work to do to get in a better position to draft a quarterback. You know, if you're talking about moving on from Matt Ryan, to me, you have to be talking about either Lawrence or Justin Fields. And right now, they're not in position to get either one.
I agree with you.
You'd have to trade up, obviously.
The one opinion I've had of the Falcons is that they need a rebuild 2 years overdue. And the problem that they haven't rebuilt is the same thing that the Giants did with Eli Manning. Is you think you have this quarterback that if you just put the right pieces around him, that you'll make another run. And I think you just need to move on from Matt Ryan just to get your franchise in the frame of mind that we need to rebuild now.
I'll tell you what,
if not going to get your quarterback next year, you just need to get in the frame of mind that we're rebuilding, because it's not going to happen with this quarterback, I don't think, in Atlanta anymore.
Yeah, I can understand that mentality, and thanks for the call. What I would say is that Matt Ryan is somebody I don't think they would want to trade inside the conference. I don't think they'd want to trade him to the 49ers. You know, I've heard a lot about Phillip Rivers re-signing in Indianapolis. Matt Ryan in Indianapolis would be interesting. Like, that would be a place where you could send Matt Ryan and live with whatever the outcome is. I don't know what the return is on Matt Ryan. I don't know how much is left in the tank, but there's enough where you would get a pretty good return, I would think. Yeah, he's an interesting player. He's an interesting player in that it hasn't worked out lately there, but at the same time, I still think Matt Ryan's got enough left to go win. 800-919-3776, 800-919-ESPN. Up next. Yes. Yes. Week 15 of the Locks of Incompetence. That when we come back, 8:42.
You've been putting back a few, and a few becomes a few too many. For a moment, you think of calling for a ride, but nah, you live nearby. What's the worst that could happen? You get pulled over, your insurance goes up, you lose your license, you total your
a lot of
car,
cap space.
you kill
You got to
someone.
remember that too.
The results of driving drunk are tragic.
They don't have
That's
a ton
why
of
law
cap
enforcement
space
is
at all.
out there looking for impaired drivers to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Drive sober or get pulled over. Paid for by NHTSA.
Carol, carolers. That's the holiday spirit. Speaking of which, Simply Safe Home Security is having a huge holiday sale. Right now, you can get 35% off the new system and a free camera at simplysafe.com/holiday. That's 35% off the system U.S. News named the best of 2020. Simply Safe protects your whole home 24/7 with monitoring by professionals. The sale ends soon, so go to simplysafe.com/holiday for 35% off and a free camera today.
The Season of Inspiration sales event is here at Open Road Mazda of East Brunswick and Open Road Mazda of Morristown. Don't miss special year-end offers like available 0.9% APR financing for 63 months and no payments for 90 days on over 500 new in-stock vehicles.
2 minutes.
Leading all-wheel drive 2021 Mazda CX-5. Now at Open Road Mazda of East Brunswick on Route 18 and Open Road Mazda of Morristown on Ridgedale Ave. Click, shop, we deliver at openroadmazda.com. Call 877-778-2136
Derek Carr is
for
hurt.
details.
When in search of a gift this holiday season, there is simply nowhere better to look than the Johnny Walker portfolio of whiskeys. Personalize a bottle of Johnny Walker now with their custom engraving. Stop by the Hub in the Bronx, Ryan's Wine in East Meadow, or JFK Liquors in Richmond Hill to purchase a bottle of Johnny Walker and receive complimentary customized engraving. Please drink responsibly. Johnny Walker Blended Scotch Whiskey, 40% alcohol by volume, imported by Diageo, Norwalk, Connecticut, must be 21 or older.
2 years after undergoing difficult chemotherapy and surgery for breast cancer, Karen Peterson learned that her tumors had returned.
I knew my only real hope was a clinical trial.
She searched everywhere until she spotted an immunotherapy clinical trial at Perlmutter Cancer Center at NYU Langone Health. She submitted her test results.
A few days later, they called me. I became the first triple-negative breast cancer patient in their trial.
8 weeks later, a scan revealed a promising result.
My doctor told me my lesions were shrinking. A couple of months later, they were gone.
Patients with melanoma, as well as bladder, lung, and kidney cancers, have also responded well to immunotherapy. And dozens of other trials at Perlmutter Cancer Center are revolutionizing cancer care.
I know there are more patients out there like me. They should know there's hope and help at Perlmutter.
To learn more about Perlmutter Cancer Center's clinical trials, visit nyulangone.org.
All right, we're back in 10.
Hey, it's Michael K. Tune in for my show Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. to 7 p.m., presented by Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com today. See how much you could save. When you call me Big Papa, throw your hands in the air if you's a true player. When you call me Big Papa, to the homies getting money, playing fellas like dummies. When you call me Big Papa,
About that time. 800-919-3776. 800-919-er. ESPN. Each week, we engage in a segment that we call the Locks of Incompetence. For those who are unaware, if you're new to the program, if you are unaware of how this all works, here is a brief recap. In my personal history as a talk show host, just, since I was picking games coming out of the womb, frankly, have always been terrible at it. I have been awful. NCAA tournament pools, NFL, college, you name it, I can't pick my nose. It's true. I've had losing records every year. I've tried everything. I even tried what you would call the Costanza method of going with the opposite of what my instincts are. It hasn't worked. So this year I've decided to try something new. And so far, it's been an intriguing result. I don't look at the matchup. I don't study individual matchups. I don't look at injury reports. I don't look at point spreads. I don't look at any of it. I simply look at the two cities involved in that particular game. And I find the most ridiculous fact that I can about one of those cities, and I make my pick based solely on that. Thus, it is time for the Locks of Incompetence.
He's tried everything. Analysis, instinct, Facts, coin flips, magic 8 balls, Scientology. If picking NFL games is right, you can count on him to be wrong. It's time for Carlin's Locks of Incompetence.
Oh, yes. Yes. To recap my record in 2020, last week I went 1-2. A half point by which the Detroit Lions screwed me. But that's okay. They didn't screw me. It happens. For the season, I am 17-15. That is a winning percentage of .531. .531. Winning record with the VIG a little underwater, a hair. So we pick 3 games, and we pick the Jets game, the Giants game, and a third game. So let us, friends, begin with the Giants, who are 4.5-point underdogs to the Cleveland Browns. Did you know that the first mass-produced potato chips were from the city of Cleveland? An innovator, a genius, a visionary, some would say, I would, named William Tappenden, produced them in his barn and delivered them in his buggy to supermarkets and taverns in 1895. Browns, -4.5 over the Giants. Game 1. Game 2. Oh, that's wrong. It's putting up the wrong graphics on the video screen. Not exactly smooth as silk. Game 2. The New York Jets are 17.5-point underdogs on the road against the Los Angeles Rams. Did you know that in Los Angeles there is a law against licking frogs? The law came in power after some teenagers in LA found out that a certain type of toad skin contains hallucinogens. Rams, -17.5 over the New York Jets. Game 2. We're out of music. Game 3. The Miami Dolphins are at home, 3-point favorites over the New England Patriots. Did you know that in the city of Miami, ice cream may not be sold in cemeteries? That is the law. Dolphins, -3 over New England. Lock it up. This week's Locks of Incompetence. Did I really go that long, Jacob, where we ran out of music bed?
Yeah, the bed just dried out.
Oh, my God. I got to shut up. Maybe speed this along a little bit.
Well, I can get along one.
Keep things moving. Yeah, I don't want to turn it into a week and a half, though. And that's what it felt like. Speaking of which, top of the hour, we have got the Carlin Chronicles making their triumphant return. Oh, I'm excited for that. Speaking of all things football and New York Jets, I want to go back to yesterday for a moment. You'll remember Trevor Lawrence's statement on the Dan Patrick Show that while he wasn't really directly talking about any specific possibility of where he could end up in the draft if he was the number one pick as he is presumptively at the moment, that he would really just be interested in winning above all else. And he would be up for taking on any challenge to go and win. Interesting in that we have talked at length about Trevor Lawrence's preferences and trying to figure out exactly what he'd be thinking. You know, I've been trying to get into his head and figure out, all right, is Trevor Lawrence going to listen to Peyton Manning? And is Peyton Manning going to rip up the Jets? Because Trevor Lawrence has gone to Peyton Manning's camps, and Peyton Manning has hated the Jets and all that stuff, and has gotten his guy Gase hired, and now he's getting fired. And is Trevor Lawrence going to talk about the Jets being, or is Peyton Manning going to talk about the Jets being a place that you can't go and win? I'll tell you what really matters at this point is continuing to see him grow and continuing to see him stay healthy. Lawrence is the total package. And this weekend, you get a chance to see him in a massive game. Now, we've already seen him win a national championship as a true freshman. But here's where the real treat is for Jet fans. You get to watch him play against a Notre Dame team this weekend that's number 2 in the college football playoff. As we talked about earlier with Richard, if Clemson loses this week, they're going to be out of the college football playoff. They're currently 4th. If they lose twice to Notre Dame, you cannot make up any excuse. Even the first time around, it's not like you could use Trevor Lawrence as the excuse because he didn't play, because their backup put up ridiculous numbers in that game, and they were right there at the end. But if they go and they lose a second time to Notre Dame, there's no argument to be made. So then you're talking about a Texas A&M team sliding in to the 4th spot. So I look at this more than anything else as yet another opportunity for Trevor Lawrence to show people what he is all about. When he talks about winning being first and foremost, he has got a game this weekend that is as big as the national championship game was a few years ago. From the simple fact that it's staying alive. It's about staying alive to play for a national championship. If Clemson loses this game, I don't see it. I don't see how they're going to get another shot at it. Meanwhile, Lawrence understands that. He is not going to come back for another year. You don't have to worry about that. This is his last go-around in college in terms of another shot at a title. I want to see, yet again, as we have seen time and again, him perform in the clutch to bring his team back to it again. And let's be clear, the talent level that has been around him this year with receivers and such has not been the same as it has been in the past. That's very clear. So if Lawrence does it this year with this team, then it's going to even speak louder about who he is, how good he is, and if he is in fact the real deal. You're not going to, he's already the presumptive number 1 pick. Even if he went out there and had a stinker against Notre Dame, he'd still be the number 1 pick. Because enough teams, enough people still believe in him, and one game is not going to knock them off of him. The only thing he has to do this weekend to still be the number 1 pick is to stay healthy. What everybody would want to see him do, what a Jet fan would want to see him do, is go win another huge game and start figuring out how to get that number 16 made before the season even ends. I told you, if this had been a non-COVID year, if I were Jet fans, I would have tried, I myself would have tried to put together a road trip to Clemson with Jet fans, get 50 or so, as many as you could, and get as many seats in one section as you could at Clemson, all wearing Jets number 16 jerseys or T-shirts or whatever, showing the guy that you love him already. That's what it's about. It's about recruiting. This weekend, it's about you enjoying. Carlin Chronicles return next. 98.7 ESPN.